Are we live?
Yes, I think we are live. We are live.
Yeah.
I think Mahul, have you got disconnected? I think Mahul has got disconnected, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, his picture seems to be frozen. Should we rejoin?
Yeah.
Hi Anand, hi Tuhin. Mahul has just got disconnected, so I will just welcome the two of you before Mahul joins in. He will join in shortly. This is a technical glitch, and I apologize for the problem that has happened. So before Mahul joins in, as we all know, that Anand is an extremely celebrated writer. He writes mythology among many others, and I am a big fan of Anand's writing. And I especially love the way Anand has taken up action writing and mythology together, which is a clear demarcation from the way we have been reading mythology. Tuhin is popularly known for writing political fictions, and his books are again something that I love reading because he has pioneered this genre, and there are quite some interesting anecdotes that come up when he writes. There are lots of experiments, and there are lots of real life incidences that very surrogately feature in his writing if you have read with care. So before Mahul joins in, if I may ask both of you that mythology, politics, and they both have a lot of importance in history. If you could just introduce Winters from those perspectives, and Mahul has also joined in. So Mahul,
Hi.
I was just requesting both of them to introduce Winters from the perspective of mythology and politics. So I request you to take over while I move out.
Thank you so much, Coral. The bane of technology is that you are absolutely handicapped when it comes to network. And suddenly, when the show started, my Wi-Fi started to not cooperate with me. So my apologies to the audience, and my apologies to my eminent panelists, and my apologies to you, Coral. So let me take on from here. So I'll start with a few lines of to set the mood of the session. The springs, the summers, and the autumn slowly pass. And when the old winter puts his blank face to the glass, I shall close all my shutters, pull the curtains tight, and build me stately palaces by candlelight. So, welcome, dear audience. My name is Dr. Mahul Brahma, and I welcome you to the winter retreat of www.tellmeyourstory.biz in the session Indian Winters, Mythology, Politics, and History. And with me, I have two very, very eminent panelists, an eclectic panelist. One is, both are authors, and one is a noted politician, and the other is a screenplay writer as well as a mythologist. So let me welcome my friend Tuhin Sinha, author and politician. Tuhin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mahul. Thank you, Coral. Thank you, Tell Me Your Story. It's a great.
Let me welcome Anand Neelakantan.
Hi.
Eminent author, screenwriter, as well as mythologist. I welcome both of you to the show, and thank you so much for your time. So, without further ado, I'll shoot my first question to Anand. So, Anand, tell me one thing: that when you think of winter and when you think of mythology, what is the first thing that comes to your mind, or that strikes your imagination?
Lots of festivals fall in winter, lots
Right.
of them. And for me personally, uh, the village in my village temple, the big 9 day festival, it is in winter, it is in December. I was born in winter, I am a December child. And winter is from Diwali onwards. You can see from Diwali onwards, you
Yes.
can see the winter has set in. Diwali marks the setting of
Right.
winter, and then it follows with a series of festival like Diwali, Kartiga, then the Mandala festival in Kerala, the Magara Sankranti, the Sabarimala festival is there, the Mandala. Then all these are closely linked to the various stories in Puranas, the Tiruvadira festival. And as a person who has written and who is a great fan and connoisseur of ancient Indian literature, one of the most important things which happened in winter is the Mahabharata War. Various scholars have been talking about the dates from November 13th, November 22nd. Approximately, they have worked out. But whatever it was during the winter month. The descriptions go where the Mahabharata war was fought. And again, from Magara Sankranti onwards, at least in the southern parts of the country, the winter changed to the next season. And if you really see, India does it really have the winter except in the extreme north. The entire peninsular India from Mumbai onwards down south, there is no winter to speak of. Mild winters are there. We are a tropical country. For us, it is more of rains and no rains. These are the two seasons. If you talk about Mumbai and beyond.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. So I'll pass on the same question to Tuhin. So, what is your first thought for Indian politics and winter? What is the overlapping set?
Well, winter, I think, lends itself to political activities better because at the core of political activities lie mass movements. And mass movements are always more conducive in a climate and in weather conditions where people can come out of homes. So that is probably the reasons why winter lends itself to a lot of agitations, whether it was the somewhat farcical anti-CA agitation. Well, that's my view. Whether it is the farmer protests. At the same time, COVID emanated during winter, and while COVID is not a political issue, it has had an immense global political fallout. If you see the world order, the geopolitical play out, as well as the world order, would seem very different. It's already seeming very different post COVID. And India's supremacy or India's consolidation or dominance in world politics has been altered significantly post the COVID onslaught, which again emanated and occurred during the winter. If you go back in time, the Indian National Congress was formed on 28th December 1885, 135 years ago. It's a travesty that the present, descendants of the Congress Parivar, the imported Gandhis, don't attach much significance to that date, which is 28th December. On 26th November 1949, the Constitution of India was adopted. And 2 months later, on 26th January 1950, we celebrated our first Republic Day. So whether it was by design or mere coincidence, I feel a lot of political activities have occurred during winter. Like I said, to my understanding, one reason is perhaps that outdoor mass movements or public participation outdoors is much easier because of the conducive climate. But even so, otherwise, whether it was the 1971 war against Bangladesh, which India won in December, most of them, or a lot of incidents have happened during winter.
Thanks, Tuhin. So you really think that post-COVID India as a prominent world power, that prominence has increased post-COVID, given the performance of the country compared to the other nations?
Well, you have to be, you have to be a somewhat, you know, obsessive left winger to not believe so. Because yes, I mean, if you see the way the stock markets, seem to be surging up every day, that's just a small indicator of how, whether it is business, whether it is geopolitics, India's consolidation is here to stay for the next many years.
Wonderful. That's a great note. So I come to my next question, and let me start this question with Tuhin. So you know, somewhat Tuhin had touched this part, but still I'll make a specific question out of it. So winter in literature, usually signifies a dark side, typically maybe given the harshness of the season and of the season, and so
It can't be. It
do
can't
you?
be harsh because Anand was born during winter, so it can't. Winter can't denote
Yeah,
that
yeah,
side.
yeah. No, no,
Winter,
absolutely.
I don't think it is very Western concept, Mahul.
Yeah.
India has always celebrated its mild winters. So as I said,
Right,
no, in mythology, if you in the Puranas, if you see, in January, the Tiruvadira, the Arudra, the day that is the day when Parvati falls in love with Shiva. Winter is a season, along with monsoon. Winter is a season. In Rudusamhara, Kalidasa beautifully describes winter. Winter is a season of celebration in India. It is not dark. Now winters might be very harsh, especially in Delhi and all because of the pollution and political maneuverings. But for the rest of the country, winter is a cause of celebration. It is never dark. It is not Game of Thrones we are talking about that winter is coming. In India, winter has always been a time of celebration.
So except maybe that phase which is known as Kharmas, which is 15 December to 14 Jan, where new
right,
beginnings are avoided. I think apart from that, winters India has really celebrated Saraswati Puja. I mean,
right.
Saraswati Puja, which
Mm.
I celebrate with a lot of dedication, and which I believe is which is the I mean, worship, which is paying obeisance to the goddess of learning. That comes in January, February. So I don't think I would consider winter to be a dark phase at all. Not
For
from a
me,
literal.
only one dark thing is there in winter. That was the assassination of Gandhiji. That happened in winter. Other than that, I'm not seeing not many of the
No, so
things that.
in fact, a lot of dark incidents have taken place. But then, I mean, over a period of time, it would be unnatural to expect that nothing dark happens during winter.
Mm.
So the 1984 riots, which eventually led to a record majority for Rajiv Gandhi, the assassination happened on 31st October. The riots broke out in the first week of November, and he was catapulted with a record majority on 25th December.
Mm.
The Babri demolition happened in December, on December 6th, 1992. The riots which followed happened during the winter. In fact, the exodus of Kashmiri Hindus happened during January 1990, the worst exodus. So, you know, winter has a dark side, but which season does not?
It is just another business as usual for India, I think. Any month you take, you get all these things. When you have a history of 3,000, 4,000 years, any month, any date, you can find enough incidents to say and find a pattern. Pattern seeking is something which is very common to all humans. It's a part of evolution. So we tend to find patterns in everything. All these kind of incidents have happened in all seasons, as to said. It has happened during monsoon. It has happened during summer. And as I said, when it is winter in some place already summer has started. The India is so big a country, vast a country that you cannot restrict to a few places here and there. So I don't think it is a, as he correctly pointed out, there have been a lot of incidents. But why specifically about Gandhiji? I said because being the father of the nation, and it happened at the moment when we got the freedom. Gandhiji being killed is definitely something the history will remember for many hundred years to come. It's not prime ministers, presidents getting assassinated is a part of history in many countries. But a person like a saint like Gandhiji getting assassinated, yes, that is one of the darkest incident in the history of India. The rest are all politics. This is something beyond. This is like the death of Bhishma Pitamaha in Mahabharata, Gandhiji's death.
Sure.
Incidentally,
Uh,
Bhishma waited for the Sankranti to happen to die, even though he has fallen much before that.
So this is a very interesting thing because you guys are right, and to some extent, my thoughts on the winter are somewhat a little clouded by the Western literature. That's true. In India, winter per se is not that kind of a dark thing, and it's a mix of both celebratory as well as the dark incidents, and then a mix that perhaps all the seasons have. But this thing that Tuhin said, uh, the way the weather is, the way it is conducive to a mass movement where you can step out and stay long outside and use this conduciveness to protest. That's a
So,
very,
like,
very interesting thought.
if you ask me, the Shaheen Bagh was a winter carnival of sorts, which is something which I have mentioned even on television. So the same
Yes,
thing would not have happened. The same incident, the same Shaheen Bagh movement would not have happened on a
summer
in the
or
month of
winter
May and
or
June.
monsoon. Yeah,
Yeah, or monsoon. So it was a
monsoon.
nice winter carnival which people celebrated with sponsored biryani, and post that, unfortunately or fortunately, unfortunately, COVID set in and that had to be wound up.
Yes, yes, yes. Farmer protest also is in a very climatic conducive time. So we can see that. Uh, Asad, this is a question to both of you, and whoever chooses to answer first can take it over. You know, things happen because, see, at the end of the day, politics, mythology, literature, everything is based. The core lies in the human behavior. So something happens, history happens because of the human behavior of one person and how that one protagonist is able to change the course of things, be it in politics, be it in literature, be it in mythology. So quickly, can you let me know that to your mind, uh, is there, and it can be both good and bad, so I have moved from that premise of the darkness of winter. So I'm looking at winter as winter, amicable to both the dark and the bright side. So I'll come to Anand. So any mythological character who you think has been instrumental in starting a movement in mythology and in history, in our history of myth, one person. So I'm not talking about a person or a character or a protagonist, rather than the event and the mindset at that point of time.
See, it is not about one person or anything. It is about how India as a culture. I will tell from this example of the second most visited temple in India, that is Sabrimala.
Sabrimala.
How the concept, yeah, the Sabrimala, it's a winter. Basically, it is called Mandalagala. It is during this 41 days. People take a vrta and go to the temple. Whether you are a believer or a non-believer, both are acceptable in India. You can be atheist, you can be choose any path. That is all right. But how these stories have been beautifully used to bring harmony in the society, this is an example of it. It also is an example of creating habits and also detoxifying your bad habits. So 41 days, the concept is very beautiful. Anyone who takes the Vrita is an Ayyappa. Ayyappa, as you know, is a son of Vishnu and Shiva. Vishnu's
Right.
Mohini avatar and Shiva. Okay, so Vishnu and Shiva, these were two conflicting streams in the medieval period, Vaishnavates and Shaivates. So this
Understand.
was used, this story or this legend for believers, the true incident, whichever way you take it. But this was beautifully used by some saints of those era to bring these two together. Now, what they did, Ayyappa was born, the entire legend is told, and then it was the time when India was coming in contact with other civilizations through trade, especially in the south. The contact was through trade rather than through invasion. So the
Okay.
way
Okay.
Indians see other communities of a different culture is totally different. That is why there was no partition in the south, because it came not through invasion but through the trade. So Ayyappa's closest friend is a Muslim, Vavar. So a mythological story where Ayyappa is born from Mohini and Shiva. His closest aid is a Muslim, and there is a masjid where all the Ayyappa bhaktas will have to go and pray and to this and then go to the temple, and then there is no caste, no religion. Where once you become Ayyappa, you even lose the name, your name. Everyone becomes Ayyappa. Everyone dresses the same. One black dress, black dhoti, and you don't wear your chapel. You sleep on the floor. Of course, this may not be possible in the north where winters are slightly more harsher, but in south it is possible. So you sleep on the floor, you don't wear a chapel, you don't eat any non-vegetarian food, you don't drink any intoxicant, you don't take smoke, you abstain from sex. You become a proper brahmachari for 41 days and you visit this temple and have the darshan during the Magara Sankranti day. So 41 days, 42 days, once you finish it, it is like a habit formation. And this was a movement at that time, say 1,000 years ago, against not only bringing people together, it was a rebellion against casteism also. Because you are everyone, irrespective of his caste. That was one temple at that time where everyone was allowed, and everyone, irrespective of caste or religion, is an Ayyappa at that time. And once
Okay.
you reach
Okay.
there, what is written there? It is Tattvamasi. That is, you are that. That it is the second part of Aham Brahmasmi. I am God. And you seek the
Understand.
God and reach the temple, climb the hills and reach the temple. And from there, what you are getting is the message. It's back is you are that. So seek within yourself. So underlining the philosophy, bringing societies together. This is what Indian culture is about, rather than dividing it in the name of religion, us versus them, and all those things. So this is something which is very important during the winter, and it has kept our country, at least large part of the country, together. Even when other parts of the country was burning in riots and also during partition and other things, this has remained in peace because of this culture and tradition and the temples and how it was how the societies were brought together using Puranas, using philosophy and mythology. That's all.
Wonderful. I mean, this is a great example. Tuhin, you have any examples on top of the mind on this regarding a
Example of?
personality, regarding a personality who's who's set a movement in winter that has been politically extremely significant on how
So
winter affects people.
interestingly, I'm working on a book right now on Birsa Munda, which
Oh,
will
okay.
release in June, and it's going to be a magnum opus. After a long break, I'm coming up with a big book, historical. So Birsa Munda was born again in winter on 15th November 1975, and his movement, the the essentially the final movement, the violent movement, after which he was arrested, which spanned over 15 days or so, happened during Christmas and in the 2 or 3 days preceding Christmas, right till the first week of January. This happened in 1899, December 1899, in the areas of in the areas between Ranchi and Jamshedpur in present day Jharkhand. Now, I am trying to revisit a whole lot of subaltern freedom fighters and revolutionaries who have remained unsung and whose contribution during the Indian freedom movement have been enormous. So, my preliminary thoughts, even though I'm still working on the other characters, on the other subaltern heroes apart from Birsa Munda. But my first impression is that a lot of these movements, again, for some reason, used to happen during uh, and Birsa, at least in the case of Birsa Munda, in you know, his entire journey, or the main turning points in his short span of 24 and a half years that he lived, most of them happened during the winter. Let me take this a little beyond. One winter, in contemporary Indian history, which one should remember, is the winter of 1976. I wasn't born. I was born in 1977 March, and 15 days after my birth, the emergency was lifted. But I'm told that there was a time, and I'm fascinated by contemporary history. There was a time when people had given up hopes of the emergency being lifted ever. So 1976 was probably the second winter where most of the top-notch politicians were rotting in jail. It was, a post-hibernation. But suddenly things changed in the first week of January, around the 8th or 9th. The emergency was lifted in quick span, elections took place. And that particularly dark winter led to an unusually or unexpectedly bright spring when, on around 23rd or 24th of March that year in 1977, the emergency was completely lifted and ended with the installation of a democratic government. So that's another winter which I remember in contemporary history. Of course, if I go beyond India, what US is witnessing right now is a particularly dark winter politically, where a responsible democratic power has been reduced or become, or been made a laughing stock, where a basic transfer of power between an outgoing president and the incumbent one, unfortunately has not happened without its share of violence and mayhem.
I, for the benefit of the audience, and this is a topic very close to my heart. So, if you can just kindly, just in 2 minutes or so, just give us a brief story of Birsa Munda, because people may not know who he is. Unfortunately, thanks to our history books. So, if you can just,
There is a layered the freedom, the fight for freedom, at least in tribal areas, used to be a very layered fight. It used to be a two-pronged fight: one against the zamindars and two against the Christian missionaries. Eventually, both of these ghosts, or both of these demons, were patronized by the Britishers. So in tribal areas, the fight was not a direct fight with the Britishers, but the two evils which the Britishers had purposely created, and both of whom used to basically, suck the blood of Adivasis. So, in fact, I can talk for a whole day on this issue. During my research, I discovered that while we are made to believe, or while we acknowledge 1857 as the first battle of revolution, as the first battle for freedom, Adivasi revolutions or tribal revolutions have actually been happening in the country from 1768 or so. There are at least 15 tribal freedom fighters who remain uncelebrated. So Birsa Munda basically was, Birsa Munda's legacy, or what Birsa Munda contributed to the movement, was an extension of multiple, or let me say fragmented, tribal movements which were happening simultaneously in different parts across the country. And his life can broadly be divided into three parts, where, in the first part, in the first 15 years of his life, he was constantly his family was constantly battling the twin demons of zamindars and the missionaries, where at one point of time he converted to Christianity, only to realize that Christianity wouldn't help solve his problems, and rather he was actually playing into the hands of, the society was playing into the hands of Britishers even more. In the second part, which was a span of about 5 years, from 1890 to 1895, he, assumes a new avatar as a social reformer, wherein he brings converted Adivasis back into the fold of Hinduism, and finally a lot of things lead to a political revolution in the last 5 years of his life, which culminate in the winter of 1899, after which he was arrested in March 2000, sorry, March 1900, and finally he died a mysterious death in jail in June 1900 at the age of 25. That's essentially the story of his life. But in those days, when and unfortunately, history has always been written from the point of view of emperors and rulers. But when one digs deep into his story, I think his contribution to the freedom movement among tribals, not just in Jharkhand, because Jharkhand anyway did not exist at that point of time. It was the it was Bengal province, which included Bihar, Bengal, Jharkhand, and Orissa, but his contribution across the erstwhile Bengal province, which now perhaps encapsulates 4 different states, has been enormous.
Thanks so much, Tuhin. So, coming to Anand. Anand, we would want to know about your book and the trilogy. I think that's on its way, and already I think one book is out of the trilogy. The Shivagami.
All the three are out.
All the three are out. Okay, my bad, my bad. So please share a little bit about the trilogy.
See, it is an official prequel to the Bahubali films. I was commissioned by the Bahubali producer, director. This is becoming a Netflix show. This is based on the fictional Bahubali kingdom. I have written it like a proto-historic fiction. So it is 30 years of Bahubali, the Mahishmati story, history before it starts, before the film starts. So the book, the trilogy ends where the film starts. So it's from Shivagami and Katappa's childhood onward to how Shivagami becomes the queen of Mahishmati, which is instantly the last book. But I like most of my novel, it is a socio-political commentary also, rather than just a fantasy novel. So whether I write Asura, whether I write Ajaya, whether I write Vanara or the Bahubali trilogy, I may be dealing with Mahishmati, Hastinapura, Ayodhya, Lanka and all, but they are India too. I am talking about today's problem. I am talking about today's people and today's aspiration. The period might be separate. That is how I try to make it relevant to today's generation. So Mahishmati is no different. There are a lot of unscrupulous politicians, poets, writers, power-hungry people. No, not different from India of today or any country at any time, because human nature rarely changes. So that is why it makes it so fascinating and so easy to write about whichever period it is.
Wonderful. And what was your first thought when when you were given the task of creating the back history of Bahubali? What did you?
I knew it is a very tough thing because you have to connect it to the film. Whereas other things I can write what I want, here you have to connect it to the film. Here also I was given the freedom, so the entire plot, characterization, characters all were mine. But still, I was writing for an audience who had seen this blockbuster film, India's biggest blockbuster in Indian history, film history. These two films, I have to, what they have spent 500 crores on to create the visual spectacle and great storytelling. I had to bring it through mere words. So that was a big challenge. And how we are prepared, that is for the time to tell, time and readers to tell. But I did my best. In 3 years, it's almost 1,500 printed pages, 3 books put together.
Wonderful. It's a fantastic thing, and Anand, my one question, do you think Asura likes winter?
Asura likes winter, I don't know. As I said, there is no winter in India.
Whatever the mild form we have.
Mild variation in temperature, at least from the parts where I come from. As I said, from Bombay onwards, the entire coastal India doesn't have much of a winter. There is rainy season and not so rainy season. Or hot season, hot, hotter. These are the three climate zones we have. So,
I'm very fascinated by by your concept of Asura. So, if you just very quickly share with the audience
It's not my concept. No, Asuras have been always a part of Indian Puranas. So they are both Asuras and Devas and Gandharvas, all of them share the same father. And see, Asura conceptually it is about materialism. They are more materialistic, and I think they are like us more because we are all materialistic. No, we are we claim to be spiritualistic, but India is a very materialistic civilization. At least it is becoming one. The India as a spiritual civilization is a British contribution. They said India is a spiritual civilization, but India was one civilization which always celebrated materialism. Spiritualism also was there, but mostly it celebrated materialism actually through our great temples, through poetry, through art, through wealth. We have always celebrated materialism. Artha and Kama, of all the four Purusharthas, Artha and Kama is where you spend maximum of your life, and most people will not go beyond that. So Asuras represent that. Asuras represents a materialistic way of life. Incidentally, one of my books, which will be coming soon, is the Asura Marga. The way how to live like an Asura, live life like an Asura.
Okay, okay, okay. This is very interesting. Asura Marga,
Asura Marga.
the way of the Asura, the way
The
of
way
the
of
Asura.
the, yeah,
Oh,
the Asura way, which is actually
wonderful.
the Indian way.
Yeah,
Because actually,
I,
even our prayers are all materialistic. No, a part of people, a very small part of people, the intellectuals, might be talking about Advaita and all those things. Common
no,
people, why
even
you
the
go to
intellectuals
uh,
are materialistic. So, even the intellectuals are
everyone
materialistic. So
is
don't worry about it.
materialistic. Who is not materialistic? So Indian, we go to temple, and even what we get there as blessing, the prasad, that's also materialistic. No, we want sweets, we want modak, we want fires, we want all those kind of things, and we even bribe the gods in a lighter vein.
Yeah, yeah.
We tell the gods, if you make me pass the exam, if you get me that job, or if you get me that girl or the boy, God becomes a marriage broker also. That I will give you this, say, I will give you a coconut or whatever it is. You bribe with material things, the gods also. So India as such is a materialistic country. I am just giving an official sanction to it, saying that don't worry, we are like that, and we should follow that. Don't go by what Britishers has told us that India is a great spiritual civilization. Okay, we can be spiritual when it is required, but we are more materialistic than anybody in the West, and we will continue to be materialistic. We
Absolutely.
celebrate life.
I write on the history of luxury, and in the 1920s, 25% of Rolls Royce's revenue used to come only from India. And we were the biggest consumers globally. All the Louis Vuitton trunks and all that, they still have their biggest consignments from our Maharajas. From the golf trunks to your tea carrying trunks to your what have you. You can just imagine, and they have a customized trunk for one Maharaja or the other. So they've all thought of it and expanded
Thankfully we have
materialism.
packed up, we have packed all Maharajas and all. Thankfully, where some people, I sometimes come into contact with many people who say if India was not a democracy, India would have progressed a lot. This kind of devotion to some leader or somebody is kind of madness which Indians have. Thankfully, India is a democracy. India was an autocracy or a collection of autocracies. Many kings were there, and we know what was our situation. Any Tom, Dick, and Harry from the Central Asia to whichever place, whenever they wanted to invade, they used to come here, invade, and take whatever they wanted and went. After becoming democracy, we have not lost any war. That's the first thing. Second thing, now common people can aspire much more. So thankfully, we have packed all the Maharajas, kings, and everyone, and all the nonsense along with them, and sent them their way. And we are much better off with our chaotic democracy. Let us celebrate our democracy. This is something. If Britain had not given us anything, at least if we have got democracy, that is enough for us, because that is the character of Indians. We are democratic in religion, we are democratic in thought process. Only in administration we had kings or nawabs or badshahs or whatever names they call themselves. All those jokers have been packed out, and now whatever how much ever the politician is corrupt, At least the people have the power, at least as of now. I don't know, I cannot predict tomorrow. At least as of now, the people have the power to vote. The common man has the power to vote and throw them and kick the corrupt politicians on their rear side with all the force which they can muster. So I think we can celebrate the fact that we have kicked up all the redundancies of autocracies, and let us hope that that kind of autocracies will never come back to India.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And I look forward to the Asura Marg.
Thank you.
Asura Marg. I look forward to it. It'll be a very interesting day. So, to him, my quick question to you is, why this deviation to a historic character in your writing? You know, I love your love stories, and then then I see this.
From a dad's point of view, just 1 second.
Yeah.
I think it's not. I don't know which book you've read, but I would believe I've written on almost everything, right from a parenting book, from a dad's point of view,
Yeah, of
to
course.
political thrillers, to romantic
Right.
thrillers, to development politics, non-fiction. So there are two books actually. One is which are in the offing and which will be out in the next 4 to 6 months. One is an espionage thriller, an international espionage thriller, perhaps the first thriller against a pandemic backdrop and which takes on China. And the other one is this Birsa Munda book.
Okay.
I just want to add something. Kashmir, once again, has been a favorite topic for me. In fact, the last book was Kashmir. And Kashmir winters, unfortunately, have always been exploited by Pakistan to create and foment trouble for India, the results of which have been more visible from spring onwards. So while all the murky, you know, while all the murky incidents of pushing infiltrators and terrorists in India happens during the winter, when the mountains are entirely snow-capped and Indian armed forces are finding it difficult to combat the infiltration. I think for the Indian security agencies, the work has begun from March and April onwards, when you have seen the trouble brewing post the infiltration. So yes, I mean, when we talk of winters, I think winter has been a very challenging time for India in the last 70 years in keeping a tab on the situation in Kashmir and subsequently controlling the damage which our neighbor invariably ends up inflicting during the winter months.
That's a very interesting observation because it is true, and we end up reacting after the inflation happens because the winters are so harsh at that point of time. And, that time. So we are almost on the verge of closing our show, but before that, I'll go to Anand for any closing comments on winter and mythology to the audience.
For me, all seasons are beautiful. It is the change of seasons which make life so fascinating. And we have, as I said, no, we always celebrated life and the myriad things in our Puranas, in our stories, in from Kalidasa onwards. As I said, mentioned about Rudusamhara, his one of his finest and first works, where he talks about various seasons, to various literature in other Indian classical languages, where they talk about the beauty of winter and all the festivals of India during the winter, from Diwali to Kartika to Tiruvadira to up to the end of it ends with Holi. The entire season is what we celebrate our life with. So let us continue to do that, and let us not get swayed by anything. We are marching forward and celebrate life, celebrate every season. Winter is beautiful, so is summer, so is rains, so is spring, and so is autumn if you have one. Thank you.
Tuhin, your closing remarks.
So, like Anand just mentioned, I think winter may be slightly more eventful than other seasons, but I think all seasons have contributed immensely to the discourse over the years and over the centuries. Now, if you take the life of Narendra Modi ji, I think three of his biggest victories in state assembly elections were in December. Which provided the foundation of his journey to Delhi as Prime Minister. Those were the elections in December 2002, 2007, and 2012. But both the elections and his biggest achievements as Prime Minister have been during the summer months. Both the resounding wins, the first was in 2014 May, and the second was in 2019 May. And I think winter has been relatively less eventful for him since then. So, I guess, like Anand said, every season has its own shares of ups and downs and positive events and negative events. But yes, I mean, to put, since this is winter and we are talking about winter, I think it was lovely kind of analyzing the incidents which have shaped history during winters, whether they were by design or by default.
History and mythology both. So,
Thank you.
you
I think leaders will come, prime ministers will come, kings will come, emperors will come and go. India is much bigger than any individual. Indians are much bigger than any individuals. So all the best wishes for everyone during these winter months. Let kings, emperors, prime ministers, leaders, let them do what they know the best. And history is the answer for that. They keep coming, they keep going. India doesn't depend on any one man or woman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I thank you, Anand. Thank you, Tuhin. And
Thank
thank
you
you,
so
dear
much.
audience, for being so kind. Thank you, dear audience, for being so kind. Thank you, Coral, and thank you, Tell Me Your Story, for this wonderful winter evening. So before I go, I'll end it with a little westernized concept of winter, which I had picked up by a few lines by Victor Hugo. Winter changes the stone of winter changes into stone the water of heaven and the heart of a man. So with that note, I'll take your leave. This is Dr. Mahul Brahma signing off. Thank you,
Thank
Tuhin. Thank
you.
you, Anand. And
Thank
it was a
you.
lovely chatting with you.
Great
Thanks, your
weekend.
audience. God bless you. Have a great year ahead.
Thank you.
Wish
Same to
you.
you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Tuhin. Thank you,
Wish you.
Coral.
Thank you.
Everyone. Thank you.